have been working with quality since 2004. Yes, 2004. And one thing that I have always noticed is about the urge that everyone has to automate everything. And I used to play around saying that automation is my oldest son, because it was before I became a mother that I fell in love with testing quality and afterwards automation. So I have been working not only with test automation, but all kinds of automation as well, such as RPA, business process automation, and cognitive, and to make automation smarter, etc., etc. And you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram or Twitter, and I'll be glad to chat with you guys. So first of all, I think we need to understand a little bit what is automation. So automation is the technology by which a process or procedure is performed with minimal human assistance. And this is the Wikipedia definition. And actually, when we talk about automation, it can be anything at all. So anything that used to be manually and now it is done with minimal human assistance, we call automation. And this can be, for example, an escalator. This is mechanical automation. We have, as I told you before, the non-technical automation, the technical automation. So when we talk about the non-technical automation, it could be business process automation, because we are automating a process and not something that is technical towards to our development, etc. And when we talk about the technical automation, we can talk about the provision environment, the test automation, and pipeline automation, etc., etc., and data automation, test data automation, etc., etc. So when we talk about the test automation fallacy, and I'm sure all you have heard this before, is that the only way we can guarantee no defects are found is by testing everything. Or, for example, we need to run all the tests every time. We need to automate everything. So for every bug that I found, I need to create a new test, and we need more tests and more tests. So I have been working with several customers. I have over 16 years of consultant experience. And what I have seen is that usually the customer, he totally forgets about uh, unit testing, component testing, integration testing, and he only talks about automation in the end of the cycle. So he talks that I need more end-to-end automation tests. I need more visual automation tests. And if you see the new point of view from IBM, for example, it's very clear that says we have three greatest point of view there. So it's to not to find the facts, but to prevent the facts, automate less. So instead of automation, more and more optimize your test suite to be sure that you are testing everything that you can. You can use combinatorial test design, etc., in order so you can have the least number of test cases testing the complete your complete application. And you have also the other thing is that instead of automate everything, everyone automates. So you make automation easier so that everyone can automate. So every time we see this, we want to just die a little bit, because as QAs, we know better. We know that this is not true. What is true is that the only way we can guarantee less defects are found is by testing the right things. So there is no point you test a 1,000 variations of the same thing that touch the same code. And we need to run unit testing, integration testing, and component testing every commit, every pull request. So we don't need to run all the tests every time. We need to automate what matters. So for example, if you have a completely new application and it's not stable and you are going to run this only once, you just cannot automate this. It's not worthwhile. Even if you have a very good tools such as we see as iHarmony, that with autonomous testing, etc., it's easier to create the testing, but we also need to consider other things in the environment. So it's not just creating the test. In order to run it, do we have the correct test data? Do we have the test data to support this automation? Do we have the environment ready for this automation? So these are touch points that we need to talk with our customer in order to make them understand that we need to start small. Automation is a journey, and that is pointless for us to start with the end-to-end testing and proceed and running from there. So this is really important. And for every bug found, I need to create a new unit test to make sure. And more, if I want to improve the quality of my testing, it's not creating more test cases. It's to making sure my test cases are testing the correct things. So for example, if you want to make sure your unit testing is correct, testing what it needs to be testing, you do mutation testing. So for someone that doesn't know what is a mutation testing, it's we have some tools, very good tools, Market Striker, PyTest, that would change your code a little bit to check if your automation testing, if your unit testing is testing what it needs to be done. So it breaks the code in order to be sure that it's testing correctly. So we need less end-to-end testing. We need less complexity. This is really something important. So when we talk about creating end-to-end testing, first of all, there is no need for us to create all end-to-end testing existing in the world with all the variations. So end-to-end tests are the most complex testing existing, and they have a lot of dependencies. So we need to just get to that point, to the end in automation, and automate this when we have a stable environment, enough and good test data, or ways to manage your test data and to create the test data necessary to do your tests and then to clean the base. So you need to not only consider the automation itself, but all its dependencies. And just remember, you cannot have everything automated. There's always going to have some human testing, always. There are some things that the human needs to check. Exploratory tests always will be manual. And so how can we start to have some good arguments to convince otherwise? Creating an end-to-end automation test script costs 4 times more than creating it manually. And I'm not only talking about this, we have also, and I will repeat this several times because this is really important. We need to have in consideration the test data. If you are working with financial institutions, your data will be burned after usage. So you need to provide for that. I have seen lots of automation projects fail and fail really hard due to test data. So they didn't have enough data. They didn't have a way to manage test data in order to run the automation. And this is not only to run the automation. When we start to creating your test scripts, you need to have data to test your test scripts to be sure how it will, if it's working or not. So have this in consideration. End-to-end automation test scripts cost 4 times more. And we need also to have a very good test environment with all the dependencies that we need to have, all the integrations for the end-to-end testing, and to ensure that all this environment needs to work. And we know that several times we just don't have the correct environment to do this, or we have a lot of dependencies, or their integrations are just not ready. So first of all, and this on the old times we used to say just this. So the automation test script costs 4 times more than to create a manual test script. But nowadays we also we need to consider. So we have several white papers that you can go and say what to automate, and it will be really clear. So it will start with what you can start automating the end to end. You can start with the regression set. The regression set, your regression bucket end to end, the main flow. You For this, you can automate it because you know you will repeat this several and several times. There is no need for us to automate everything. There is no need for us to automate all the variations if it's touching the same code. One other thing that is really important as well is for we can automate the test data creation. So if you have data that can be created synthetically, you can automate the test data creation, and you can embed this package for end-to-end automation when you run first your creation for your test data, then you run your automation, and then you run another script to erase this test data. So you leave your system just as was before. This is the optimal usage for your end-to-end automation. So what can we automate it? Besides the regression suites, the main functions, the main flow, it's, and as I said before, automation is a journey. It's a very fruitful, a very nice journey. So we need to start automating, uh, start small. So we need to start automating the less dependent tests. So we will start with the unit testing. The unit testing, it's really small. It's cheap to automate, it's cheap to maintain, and it ensures that the small parts are working. And then I'm sure all of you have heard about the test pyramid. Unfortunately, our customers have not heard about the test pyramid. So we need to work a lot, considering that we need to explain to them that we need to start with the base of the pyramid. So we need to start with the unit testing, and it's a journey, the automation. We start having a very good maturity with the units and components automation testing. And then we going further and up into the pyramid, so we can ensure that we are going to testing what we are going to test in the upper level of the pyramid we have not tested previously, because we're not going to be doubling our tests. So again, we need to automate a lot of unit integration component test as much as possible, and use SonarQube, use any code coverage tool, so you can have a very good coverage. And then when we go further on the pyramid, we're going to do fewer tests, end-to-end testing, and we start automation the main function only the main function. So one thing that is really interesting, and was last showed for the 2021 State of the Test Automation Report for Perfecto. So, and this was showed before previously on the Agile testing for Lisa Crispin and Janet Gregory. So we have the Agile testing quadrants. So we have the tools, the specialty testing that we use tools to testing on the Q4, performance load testing, security testing, accessibility testing, any testing at all that we use tools to do it. And so this we will focus with the tools, and for example, performance load testing, they are done automated security as well, but with the tools. What are the tests that we are going to actually do manually? The exploratory testing, the usability testing, user acceptance testing, of testing, A/B testing, etc. Always will have automate. So we need to automate close to everything on Q1. So unit testing, component testing, automate as much as possible. If you get to 95, 99%, that would be awesome. And for the Q2, we have we will go to, we can do some prototypes automation. This is really interesting when you can do some visual testing automation. This is very interesting. Also the functional testing, the main flow. So we need to focus on that. So I talk about the test pyramid. So Martin Fowler, and here we have the link as well. So use Lisa Crispin. She's a very known in the use the studies that you have in hand in order to convince the automation. It's not only you that is talking, but the state of test automation for Perfecto states that. The test pyramid states from Martin Fowler states that the test automation, the accelerator report states that. So you use the hard facts you have, and we have a lot of hard facts in order to convince your customer that it's not only you that is talking, but this is the market trend. So when we talk about the test pyramid, so we need to focus on more tests, on unit testing, because it's faster, it has a smaller scope, we have a very quick feedback. The faster the feedback, the cheaper it is to fix it. And I have another very good study and graph about it on the next chart. So we will focus on this because it's a bigger isolation. We don't need so much dependence on data. We don't have dependence on environment, because we will do double testing with mocks and stunts and whatever. So, and as we progress to the top of the pyramid, what we'll have is more dependence on data, more dependence on the environment, because when we get to end-to-end, we cannot have virtualization or any tested doubles for our testing. We need to really testing. So here on the unit integration component testing, we will start to testing considering mocks and really fixed data, and we can test over and over at every commit to ensure our code is good. So do regression tests for unit, component, and integration. So as I told you about, this is a very good chart from Scott Ambler, and I have validated with him last year, and this is still very good. So use this chart as well. So as sooner as you found your bug, the cheaper it is to fix it. So when we talk about the unit testing, we will find it here in the early of the stage. So we can find via continuous integration, TDD, and when we go to the traditional testing, the end-to-end, we will find the defect here. This is much costly to fix it. So this is not only about the easier, but it's cheaper to do this. It's cheaper to maintain. It's cheaper to fix it. So I don't know if you know, but if the defect that is found on production may cost 140 times more than the defect that is found during the requirements, the planning of the project. Okay. And according to the State of DevOps 2019, so the State of DevOps, it split all the respondents of this research into low performers for DevOps, medium performers of DevOps, high performers, elite performers. So if you go here and see the automation and integration of that they are doing per the performance profile, what we'll see is that we have 87% for elite performers doing automated unit tests. We have 92% of them doing automated builds. But acceptance tests, automated acceptance tests, only 58%. What does this show us? This shows us that we cannot do 100% of end-to-end automation tests. So this is something that I will not get tired to talk about. We need to focus, really focus into automating everything that we can, close to 100% on unity and integration and component tests. Yes, we need to do this. But end-to-end testing, if we get to 50%, this will be just lovely. But when I say end-to-end testing, I'm talking about the optimized test suite. So we need to get all the thousands, the hundreds and thousands of test scripts we have in the end-to-end suite. We need to clean it. We need to optimize it to ensure that we are testing there. It's only the main flow, the regression that we are going to test all the system. And it's not testing everything that we have tested before. Okay, so this is what I have. I'm close to get to the end of the time. So this is what I had to tell you about. So please use the hard facts. What are the hard facts? 2021 State of Test Automation Report that talks about the agile testing quadrants. Martin Fowler test pyramid, the cost versus feedback cycle for Scott Ambler, and State of the DevOps 2019. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Okay, so I'm seeing here we have some questions. Let us see. If we have a 2-week sprint cycle, if a new build being generated every day, what should be my testing approach if I don't have automation in place? First of all, what you need to do, you need to start. And when you say about you don't have automation in place, you don't have unit test automation. If you don't have unit test automation, start with unit test automation. You have several automation frameworks that uses the same learning curve for unity, componency, and integration automation, such as Spock, for example, Cypress, etc. So start with this. Get a very good automation framework, and then start implementing your unit testing, your component and integration. And then you need to check the tests that you have in end-to-end, and you need to optimize it. And then you can start automated this as a technical debt in your sprint. So reserve time to start automating your end-to-end test, but only the optimized test suite. Okay, so how much end-to-end testing can be recommended approximately? Percentage of unit testing versus percentage. So usually what we say is that we spend 60 to 70% of our testing effort on the lower base of the pyramid. So you do 98% in your Unity and components testing in automation, and then you can go to the contract to the integration testing 70%, and then you go with the automation on the end-to-end up to 50-60%. It would be a great approach. Okay, maximum, I'm saying. And this is a journey. Just remember, this is a journey. You need to start with the base of the pyramid, and then you go up. And then, as I told you, you can do the approach to create a technical depth, to reserve time in your sprint, to do the legacy for the end-to-end. But before, you really need to optimize your test suite. Let me see. Some companies start directly from end-to-end scenarios to automate. What do you think about that? I think this is just wrong. I think this is the way that we used to do things in the 80s, maybe 90s, when we have the waterfall, when we have a really large test team. And so we have, for example, we need to, at that time, we need to calculate 30% of the effort would be for testing, and the testing would be only on the final, and we have this huge end-to-end test suite. So this cannot be done nowadays because we don't have the time to do this. And if we start to do this, automate directly end to end, we will find several bugs. So for example, I have one customer that do the only mobile testing, and for any given reasons they just can't do the testing inside the sprint. So when it goes to end to end, they find a lot of bugs that shouldn't be there, and this is way costly. This is way lengthier that it should be. How to share this info correctly with business people. That exploratory testing is very important. That no need of huge end-to-end automation. Okay, so we need to convince them that nowadays, into this agile world, and according with several very knowledgeable people from the market, and what the market is doing is that we need to consider to start small, and then we can see, look, what are the benefits for you delivering faster. And then you go to the state of DevOps 2019, and then you get there the hard facts for the business. So the elite performers, they get 60% more profit. And then when you start to show them that the elite performers get it better, and you start to show them what they are doing to get it better, and then you get to the part that say, listen, in order for us to deliver faster, what we need to do is to start small. We need to ensure that every little part is working, and the end to end, it's only in the end. So we need to really start, and this is not a one-day job. This is a change of mindset, and a mindset that has been there for several years. So we need to go with baby steps, but we can do it. You just need to start showing them, and usually it's very interesting when you start to implement the unit testing, and then you start to show real data from your team as well. Look, here is the kind of defects we have before, and now that we have implemented this, look how this is with better quality. Look how it's important to have the built-in quality, to understand that the QA is not on the quality, it's not only for QA, it's a whole team based thing. Okay, this was answered, this was answered, this was answered, this was how to effectively integrate automation when doing performance testing. Well, actually, we need to start to considering the strategy before everything. So you need to have, and this is something that I see several customers failing in advance. do we have the correct non-functional requirements available since the beginning of the sprint? So this is really important. And I'm not only talking about the performance, I'm talking about security as well. Do we know exactly how many users are going to access simultaneously? We forecasted for this? Did we talk with the business about it? This is something we need to have in hand in the beginning so we can develop according, and then we can do the performance strategy well since the beginning. And then we'll need to have a separate team in order to do this and to reserve time in your sprint. uh, the chart, which chart? It was the chart for the feedback cycle. So the first here that we have, this is the cheaper one. So if we find the bug here in the beginning of our cycle with the development, it will be really cheap to fix it. As we go further and further and further, it will be cost more. So when we get, for example, here the bug that is found using a traditional user acceptance test, it will cost way more than it would go if we found here in our unit testing.